All right, so good evening, everybody. It looks like we have about 25, 26 folks in attendance this evening, which is great. We're glad you can join us. We are recording this, so we also recognize that it's a beautiful, almost 90 degrees out this evening and afternoon, and so maybe people are enjoying that weather and planning to watch us at a different time, so that's perfectly fine. I am Jamie Farr. I'm the superintendent of the Canandaigua City School District. I'll have Heather introduce herself in a moment and kind of talk about her piece. But I just want to offer a couple reminders for those of you who have watched me do these forums before. Occasionally you'll see me checking my cell phone. I do have a few people watching just to let us know if something didn't come out clearly, or we lost audio, or there's any technical difficulties, so we could try to troubleshoot that. And the last thing I would say is our question and answer segment is open, but we would ask that you hold all questions and answers till the very end of the presentation, because we're likely going to answer many of your questions. And that way we don't have to scroll through all the questions to determine which we have answered and which ones we haven't. And it just kind of slows us down. And so the presentation we'll do is about 20 to 25 minutes long. And then the rest of the remainder of that hour that's allotted for this, we will answer questions. If we don't have a whole lot of questions, we'll close early, and that's fine too. But we're here to hopefully answer a lot of your questions and discuss some things that are on your mind, especially given all the recent events. And so let me start the presentation, and then I will kick it over to you, Heather, to do your part. So let me share my screen so that everybody can see this. And Heather, can you see that okay? Because if you can, I'm assuming others can as well.
Yep, good to go.
All right, the floor is yours.
Okay. Just figuring out my screens here. I apologize. I have a little hard time with this. Okay. So thank you very much. As Jamie said, my name is Heather Holman. I'm current president of the Canandaigua PTSA. And just want to say thank you for the partnership in this community forum. Some of you may be wondering why PTSA, what do we do and why are we here this evening sponsoring this forum. So I'm just going to take a few minutes to explain who we are, what we do, why we're here this evening especially. And then I will hand it over to Jamie. So we are the PTSA, which stands for the Parent Teacher Student Association. We're really proud to be working together with parents, teachers, and students, and in our case in Canandaigua, also administration towards our mission. And our mission statement is that PTA is a powerful voice for all children, a relevant resource for families and communities, and a strong advocate for the education and well-being of every child. So how do we fulfill that mission here in Canandaigua schools? We are a voice. So at our public meetings, which we hold several times throughout the school year, we provide a space for communication directly with building representatives, building administration, principals, building leaders, and Superintendent Farr are all present at our meetings, and they are there to provide updates on the different buildings as well as the district-wide. So you really have their ear in a very small setting and opportunities to ask questions and be part of a conversation. In the past, we have hosted special forums such as this evening. We've addressed concerns in the food service. We also had a forum on the use of technology in the classroom. And both of these forums led to some really positive open conversations that were really beneficial for everybody that attended. And we're always willing to facilitate any necessary conversation that works towards the betterment of our schools and community and improves an understanding of what's happening and why. So second part of our mission is to be a relevant resource. And so by having an open line of communication with all of our school leaders, we are able to assist in guiding families towards appropriate resources for their individual situations. You can contact us anytime with any sort of questions, concerns, ideas. If we can't help you, we'll certainly put you in contact with somebody that can. And we'd like to consider ourselves a bridge between the community and the school. Third part of our mission statement is advocacy. So our membership fee is only $5. $4 of that goes directly to New York State PTA, which they then use towards coordinating different programs on behalf of children and youth, as well as representing themselves on state committees and commissions dealing with children and youth. So New York State PTA has a voice in Albany with all of our lawmakers. There's hundreds of thousands of members in New York State that are represented in order to ensure the health and well-being of our students. PTA always supports funding for mental health support in our schools, funding for social emotional learning and support in our schools, as well as funding for school safety, which is tonight's topic. If you're interested in learning more about these specific initiatives or anything else involving New York State PTA and therefore Canandaigua PTSA and what we work towards, you can visit, it's nyspta.org. And they have a lot more information there. So the vision of the PTA is to make every child's potential a reality. So I think that's something that we can all support and work towards. So if you would like to join us in this vision, we would love to see some new faces at our next meeting, which is also our final meeting of the school year. That one is on Wednesday, June 22nd at 6:30. It will be held via Zoom. And we're always open to any sort of communication from the community, from families, parents, everybody. And you can always email me directly. My email is on that slide that Jamie's presenting. And we'd be happy to work with you and answer any questions. And we would hope to see you at any future meetings. So that's it for me. I appreciate you listening. And I will pass that back to Jamie for his safety presentation. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Heather. And for the folks listening, we have a long line of fantastic PTSA presidents, and Heather being the most recent. And people who just love our school, love our community, and are here to support what we're working on. And as you stated, we've had parent members of PTSA in the past bring up questions or concerns that they have. And it really offers a great opportunity for us to do a forum. And usually they're done during PTSA meetings. And after we do the presentation, we have a great dialogue because it's usually a small group of people, between 10 and 20 people. And we can really, kind of dive into those topics, which is great. When the unfortunate events happened last week in Texas, I was in the process of working with my team here at the district office, setting up to do a forum that evening. And as we were working on that, Heather had emailed me and wondered, should we do a forum or some kind of a community outreach around safety? I'm hearing from a lot of parents. And so it just made sense. This is a format we've used before, and it made sense to partner again and do this way. And as unfortunate as it could be, is that night I lost my voice and I couldn't even speak. So that's why we released the letter version and then put this off for a few days so I could hopefully recover, which I mostly have. So thank you, Heather, for all your support. And thank you to all PTSA members. We have a really loyal group of people that show up and invested in the school, ask hard questions, but they really want the best for kids, and that's what we all want. So let me jump into the safety presentation. If you have questions for Heather regarding PTSA, her email is there, as she said, and please do ask away. And so when we look at safety, it's really kind of a multifaceted approach. There is no one approach to increasing the level of safety that exists within a school facility or any facility for that matter. And so you see this visual here that talks a lot about the different facets. I'll talk about most of these tonight, but not all of them. It just certainly isn't enough time to get into the depths of all of them. And we've had forums that have kind of touched on some of these other things in the past, but this is kind of what we'll be getting into. And so let's just jump right in. The district has really undergone a lot of different safety initiatives. I've been here for 5 years as a superintendent. Previously, I was in a different district that borders here. And in the 5 years I've been here, there's really been a lot of safety upgrades. But even before I got here, there were a lot of safety upgrades for a variety of reasons. And I just want to highlight some of them that a lot of people aren't even aware of. The first one is magnetic door holds. Many of our classrooms and corridors throughout our entire district are held open by magnets. As you also know, we're in the middle of a capital project right now, and part of that capital project is to expand the magnetic hold door openers. The reason why that's important is if there's any fire alarm or anything that goes off, those magnets release the door and they close automatically. What people also don't understand or maybe know is our technology that exists in relation to those magnetic door holds. Our administrators in every building, they have badges, just like all of our staff have badges, but they have special badges as well on top of these ones. All they have to go up to is any badge opening door and put their special badge up to it, not their main one, but they have a secondary one that they carry with them. And that badge will lock down the entire building. Every door in every classroom will go closed and locked automatically. In fact, it goes further than that. Most of us on our cell phones at district office administration and our building level administrators, we have apps on our phone. So from right here at my desk where I am right now, I could close every classroom door and lock it at the academy immediately just by pushing a button. And so, those are some features we put in place that are pretty progressive. And not many schools have those in our region. Some are starting to put those in, but we've had those for a little bit now, and we test them regularly to make sure they're working. As the case is with any technology, it's not foolproof, it's not 100% effective, but the effectiveness rate of that feature is very high. And so those are the first two bullet points there. The third one is a push button locking system. You look at what happened in Texas, and reading some of the things that happened there, and the teachers will say, I didn't even have time to come out of my classroom and lock the door. Here in the Canandaigua City School District, they don't have to. We have these locking mechanisms on the door. The doors, when they close, there's just a button on the back of the door. All they have to do is push the button and it locks it. That doesn't need a key. It doesn't involve a key or anything. And we practice these drills, and I'll talk about it in a little bit. And again, really effective in that process of locking down those classrooms. And then the entire capital project, I've mentioned it once already, that we're in the process of. It's over $60 million, and it's touching every facility that we own, every campus. And there's a lot of safety pieces that are going along with that. For those of you that are really familiar with, especially our middle school and the primary elementary school, they're a bit older buildings, and the classroom doors have large window panels on them. And so if you've been in our primary school since the capital project has been underway, and if you haven't, you'll soon get to check it out. Everybody's getting new doors, and the doors will have a much smaller window panel with a mesh liner within it. And it's on the opposite side of the door handle. So it would be nearly impossible to break the glass and reach in and open the door. And so, those are all things that are going in currently as we speak, and throughout the next school year while we finish up this capital project. When I came here, there were two, even before me, we've had one school resource officer, we've had two, it's gone back and forth. And most of the time they were part-time school resource officers. So they are uniformed, armed police officers that are in our buildings. And when I say part-time, what they had always been is a retired police officer who would work 6 hours a day, which is just short of a full student school day. A couple of years ago, we had conversations with the city, because ours are the city police department. Since we're in the city limits, that's the requirement. And we had conversations about taking it, one of the part-time people, and making them a full-time person, a youth officer. That would be shared costs between the city and the school district, because the idea was this person would work for the school, but also to connect families with resources and kind of be that the person that would contact the city police force as well, that would kind of work on both sides of it. So I think we're going on our second or third year now with having the full-time school resource officer that's here the full day and beyond, and a part-time person that's here for 6 hours. Their offices are primary in the academy and middle school, but they do come down to the primary elementary school. You'll often see them at drop off and pick up, and they'll make some stops in the middle of the day as well. And so that's something we're always looking at. We have some really great school resource officers currently, and we're happy with everything they do for us. They're so responsive, and they're doing a great job. So we've increased that capacity in the last few years. And every year we talk about, do we increase it more? Where are we with it? The chief of police for the Canandaigua City School District and myself, every year we attend a city council meeting, and we talk about the strength of the program, the benefits of the program, and kind of what we'd hope to see it for the future. And so, again, we're really happy with that program. A Raptor system. This is something that's, relatively new. I think the last 4 or 5 years, maybe a little bit further than that out. But anytime a visitor comes to our school, they have to have a valid ID, and the ID goes through this Raptor system. It's in every vestibule to enter, and that's staffed. And so that ID goes through this Raptor system, and it does a brief background check that will tell us if there's any reason that person should not be on school grounds. And if it comes back as a person that should not be around children or around school grounds, myself and the building administration and a couple other district office administrators, we get a text message immediately that there's someone, they'll tell us where they are that should not be on campus, so we can respond immediately. Every now and then that'll happen, and we'll respond to that. And so it doesn't happen often, maybe once or twice a year, and we have people that respond to it right away, or we do ourselves. And so that's a great system. So anytime we have a visitor or volunteer, they go through that system as well. We have staffed secured vestibule entries at the primary, elementary, middle school, and academy, and even at district office. So what that means is the outside exterior door is locked. They have to be buzzed or let in, and then they come into a locked vestibule. So there's a next set of doors that are locked, and there's a person staff there that would greet the person that's arrived on our campus, talk to them about what they're there for, sign them in, run their ID through the Raptor system, as I talked about, before they could then buzz them into the actual building. And so all of those buildings have that, which is an upgrade that probably went into place at this point, probably 12 years ago. So, that's something that not a lot of places have, but Canandaigua does. We have secured entry at our alternative school, the CACC, and what's not on there is also our operations center, the transportation center, where our maintenance crew works out of. What that means is those exterior doors are also locked, and you have to buzz in to come into the complex. And there's an intercom there where they can interact with somebody that's really monitoring those spaces. So those are there. We have pretty broad interior and exterior surveillance cameras. So you remember last week we communicated of a potential incident that happened at the academy in the parking lot. The police chief, and a couple other officers responded immediately, and they watched that video with our administration to try to determine what happened. So we have a lot of surveillance cameras that we can depend on. We've also paid special attention to our landscaping for safety. So what that really means is being strategic around line of sight and removing certain shrubbery or trees that might infringe upon lines of sight around the building. And so that's been something we've been doing for the last few years as well. After some detailed training that our administrative team went through, that was a piece of advice that they received from it. And that was one of the many things that we implemented. So these are little things that you may not notice as a community member or staff member, but these are things that have been happening. Also, I would say the classroom furniture setup and design, we've literally given our staff time to consider about how they set up their classroom, so that if we ever had to go into a lockdown, and I'll talk a little bit more about our lockdown procedures in a bit and barricading, that they've set up their room so it would be quick and easy to barricade, and people could get out of the line of sight from their door window. So that's something we're pretty strategic about, and we allow time for our teachers to kind of maneuver at the very beginning of every school year. And then the Brave Square communication system. So you're very well aware of that. It has a lot of different features, but the Brave Square system, we can send emergency alerts right away to everybody's phone. And so that's a feature that's there. And we were one of the actually first schools in all of New York State to implement Brave Square. It's actually a parent Square company, but we named it Brave Square just because of our name. We were one of the first school, if not the first school in all of New York State to have this. But because it's been so effective, we've had many schools reach out to us to learn more about it. And back in the fall when I checked, it was over, I think we're over 40% of the schools in all of New York State now have that. And so again, we're not afraid to be progressive and aggressive with safety measures and things like that. And so those are just some of the safety upgrades we've had. And I should also say, I can't get into every little piece because some of it needs to remain confidential, but I'm certainly going to share as much as I can that doesn't have to remain confidential. And so I want to talk about a couple of other things. What you'll see on the one visual to the one side of the screen is Shell. Those are all our kind of emergency response protocol that we practice pretty continuously with all of our staff in all of our buildings that have students, but really in all of our buildings. So all of those words, shelter in place, hold in place, evacuate, lockdown, and lock out, there are certain things that we need to do in response to if somebody goes over the PA or if somebody's yelling down the hall, any of those commands, there are things that we need to do as a system to provide safety. And we practice those things every year. We have to, the state requires us to, but I believe we've taken it kind of a step further, and we practice it quite a bit, and we spend time training and talking to students and staff about each of those things and being very specific about how to handle those things. Every year, our administrative team does a training with local law enforcement to learn about some of the newest learnings that are out there, the newest approaches, because we want to be up to most current approaches on things. We also all of our administrative team was trained in ALICE, and ALICE is it's a standardized approach to a problematic situation, and we implement a lot of the ALICE strategies, but we wouldn't consider ourselves an ALICE school for a couple of reasons. There's some pretty substantial fees and things like that, but we continue to be trained on ALICE and implement those strategies in our safety protocols. Again, I'll talk about that in a little bit. When we made that switch to ALICE, though, it's a pretty aggressive switch from what we were used to. And when we do any of these shell scenarios, especially the lockdown, it's a pretty substantial shift that made people uncomfortable, I think, at first. And so when we were looking at this and researching it, we spent time educating our board in public session about the shifts, what it would look like, answering their questions. And then our principals in every building turnkeyed all of this learning, all of these shifts, all of this new approach with their staff. And so they kind of put them through the ALICE type of a training with their staff. Then they gave them time to go practice it. And I mentioned kind of that time to set up their room and to think about it in their classes. And then we sent out a lengthy communication to all of the community, all the families at this time. And again, this was about 3 or 4 years ago, I think 4 years ago, in fact. So we sent that communication out to the community, and it was right around the time of Parkland, if some of you remember that, and I'll talk about that a little bit later on as well. And so it was viewed at the time by the community and by the folks as definitely different, and there were questions, but over time, people, I believe, embraced it and feel empowered by it. And then annually, we train our students and our staff, and we practice these drills. And I'll get into the specifics of it shortly. So, for example, here's one of the pieces that we took out of ALICE. No surprise drills ever. When we do a drill, our administrators will go on the PA system and announce, we are about to practice this drill. And most of our staff in most drill situations are given advance notice beyond that even, that the drill is coming up, because we want people to be not overly alarmed when we're doing a drill, to really focus on improving and practicing so they can do it the best and most efficient that they can. And we don't want any mishaps. So if one of those, I'm going to go back to shell, if one of these things are called without advance notice, that means it's real, or they should take it as a real situation and respond accordingly. And if they're, even for fire alarms, if there's a fire alarm that happens and there's not advance notice and the staff doesn't know ahead of time, because they are given advance notice on fire drills now, if there was a fire drill without advance notice, just to make sure you proceed with caution. It's very important to do, because you don't know what could be happening out there. And so be very alert and proceed with caution. And then, yeah, so I'll kind of keep moving forward. We need to be, strategic with our practicing and be thoughtful. So when we practice these drills, there are often times where we'll invite police force on our campus while we're doing these drills. It just happened a few weeks ago. In fact, at the primary elementary school, we practiced a lockdown drill. And we probably had 15 or so, maybe 20 police officers on campus for that drill. There was advance notice for staff. Then the principals went on the PA. They gave everybody a heads up, we're about to do it. And then they went into lockdown. When we do a lockdown now, the difference is, it used to be 10 years ago or so, when you went into a lockdown, you would close your door, turn off your lights and hide and just stay hidden. Similar, it's still similar now, but what we add to that is we barricade rooms, we block lines of sight, and at the secondary level, well, I shouldn't even say that, I won't get there yet. At all levels, they prepare to evacuate, and they have to use their own judgment. So if they believe, if the teachers and the adults in the space believe it's safe, they can go out the window and evacuate to a rally point. And I'll talk about rally points in a bit, but we give them the autonomy to make decisions. Or if we have intel, we would communicate over the PA, over Brave Square, over email, where the issue is, and if they're in a place where they can evacuate to do so right then. And so, that's an added step that was never in the practice 10 years ago, that whole evacuation and get away from the facility if you can. And then the other part for the middle school and academy that was unnerving at first was this notion of counter. So if someone were to force their way into a space, to prepare to counter them. Because what the studies are showing you when you look at these violent events, in the areas where people lay low and stay quiet, if an assailant comes in and there is no reaction, that, I hate to be so blunt about it, but the fatalities are higher than where people counter. And there's a lot of studies in school settings and college settings where that holds true. And so, we talk about what that would look like. It's hard for somebody who wants to do bad things when, things are being thrown at them or there's some kind of a counter aggressive move, and it minimizes the risk in those situations. So we talk to our students about that. We talk to our staff about that at the secondary levels where they're a little bit bigger. And like I said, at first, these things were pretty unnerving. The whole get away from the building if you can, and that whole notion of counter if you must, was unnerving. But after they've practiced it for a few times, by and large, what we hear from folks is it feels a bit empowering, and they're thankful we've moved in that direction. And like I said, unfortunately, there's studies out there, and unfortunately, the studies have proven that those measures are preferred in terms of minimizing risks. And we constantly are examining our safety procedures after every drill. So when we had those police officers here a couple of weeks ago and we did the lockdown, I was there. I was partnered up with a police officer, and we were given a wing of rooms that we would try to, knock on the door and see if anybody would answer. So we want people to not answer the door. The only time they come out is if, a police officer comes in and identifies themselves and shows their badge. And so they don't answer the door. They're great at that. They're out of line of sight. We look, we see if we could see anybody. They're great at that. And then barricading the door. We try to force our way in through their barricade. And I can tell you the last couple of years, it's almost impossible. Our staff and our students have gotten so good at this. And this is all the way down to our UPK level. They barricade those doors in those rooms, and to the point where you just can't get in. And that's our hope. And they do it immediately. And so we're really proud of them for taking it seriously. And it's a sad state of affairs that we have to practice these things, but we do. And we try to be reassuring to the kids, and we try not to cause too much concern or fear. We really do, but these are important things that we must practice. So we're examining things. We just had a meeting not too long ago with a nationwide expert on these events to talk about extracurricular activities and those evening gatherings and how can we be safe at those. And you'll see we have a much greater police presence at those now, and we continue to examine those spaces. And we always are talking to law enforcement. Like I said, they've been great partners. Here's another piece that people may not understand. There was only about 3 schools in our whole region that had one of these teams, and Canandaigua was one of them. I think it was, don't mark my words on this, but I think it was Greece, Fairport, and Canandaigua were some of the first to have a behavior intervention team. And so our administrators went through a training with all of these entities you see listed on here: the school, the police, the Canandaigua City, the state police, the sheriff's department, Ontario County Mental Health, the juvenile probation group, CPS, and then the psychiatric network. We all went through this training together, and every other week we host it here in district office, a meeting with representatives for every one of those groups. We come together and we talk about students and adults in our community that are on our radar for one reason or another that could be concerns around safety. The intention of this is to identify people early, have conversations about them, to connect with them and their families, and give them the support and resources they need to be successful. That's the entire intent of this group. And I have to tell you, it's absolutely fantastic. We're so thankful for this partnership. And to think about all of these people convening every other week, that's a lot of time and dedication to focus on safety and proactive measures to give people the services and help they need. And so we're really excited about that as well. That's been in place for at least 3 or 4 years, and it's still running strong. And we're really thankful for those partnerships. And we revise training yearly too as a group to make sure we know what we're looking for. And this kind of talks about a little bit about what BIT does, but it really assesses the likelihood of violent acts from folks based on what we know, based on our connections with those families. There's home visits, and our folks, our mental health team, our administrators, they're fantastic. If something comes to us, an alert, it just happened a couple weeks ago where this concern was raised. It was literally about 10 o'clock at night when I got a text and then a phone call. We're on the phone with the police. The police make a visit to the house at 10 o'clock at night. We're on the phone with the family at 10 o'clock at night, making sure everybody's safe, making sure a plan is in place. Any time of the day or night, we're responding to it immediately. It's never, if there's a concern around safety, we have to take it serious and we respond at that moment. And so, so even when a police does a home visit, they're looking for things like, do they have access to weapons? Do they have plans? All of those things, those questions are explicitly being asked so we can have dialogue about it and determine the level of threat. And so, these are the things. And so, every other week when they meet, they reevaluate past people that were kind of on the queue and that we were trying to learn about. And so they continue to do that on a biweekly manner. And if anything comes up in the meantime, so we have the bigger BIT team, but we also have building level BIT teams. So every building has their own BIT team that has a couple people that are on the district level team. And if there's a building specific issue, they convene also, and they continue to talk about it and work with the families and work with the student to give them the help they need. And then furthermore, I would take it a next step is the BIT team will also, the information they gather and what they know, the intel that they have, we have a team that will then do a threat assessment. So they'll look at all the information to determine the realness of the threat and how we need to respond to that to make sure people are safe. And so that is the reason I'm sharing this is, it's not like one person looks at information or maybe a threat and says, oh, that's not a real threat or that's a real threat. We actually have a team of professionals that come together. That's administrators, teachers, staff, mental health staff that come together and look at the information before them to determine the level of actual threat. And that last point at the bottom there, I can't emphasize enough. Our approach is always to be proactive and restorative. We want people to feel like they have the support they need, that they have this sense of belonging, and that they have people they can go to in the school and they're getting the help they need so they can be successful. So while there are punitive pieces that have to take place occasionally, we come from a lens that we're always looking to be restorative and help people do well. That's our ultimate goal. And so I talked a bit about Alice already, and I talked about our approaches to lockdowns, and I talked about barricading, I talked about countering. And the one thing that I guess I also haven't really specifically talked about is rally points. So if a teacher or a staff member determined there's something happening and I need to get my students out of here, we've given them the autonomy to make smart decisions in the moment, because that's what it would take if the unthinkable were to happen. But we also have rally points established. So if people evacuate our facility and get off of our campus, they know throughout the community there's designated rally points, and we have open partnerships with these people, and they know they're a rally point where we want them to go to if they can safely get there, because that's where we'll reunify. That's where it's a reunification site. And so the students know where those places are. They practice them. They literally this year have practiced going to those spaces. And so they know where they are. You know, they may have forgotten because it's been a while, but the staff certainly know where they are. And so those are kind of the new approaches to safety. So when I talk about kind of the ALICE approach and the ALICE training and the BIT team and the threat assessment, these are all things that are really new to our region. And they're things that we have implemented in Canandaigua almost first and before everybody else. So I can think of at least 3 times where we've been asked to present once to another school and their whole safety team in our region because they wanted to learn from us and kind of mimic what we're doing. And then twice we presented to every school in Wayne Finger Lakes, BOCES, so it's 26 component districts on our safety practices. And we've also presented to Board of Education members from all the component districts in our Wayne Finger Lakes, BOCES on our safety method. So kind of what you're seeing now, we've presented and been able to answer questions because others have heard about what we're doing. It's recognized as new and progressive, and they want to learn more so they can implement some of these things. And so it's a tip of the hat or a credit to, we have some administrators that, you know, a big part of their job is safety. And so a tip of a hat and credit to them for all their work around this and moving us to this point. And a tip of the hat to our students and staff for really taking it seriously and doing a great job. And, you know, I was going to move into this. We're very specific to practice them all in 1 week every school year, but we do it throughout the year beyond that. But 1 week we dedicate to safety week. And this is just an example from a few years ago, what it looks like, what we would do Monday. And this is all levels, UPK through 12, in classrooms to talk about what the various drills are and the reasoning and kind of help people understand why we do what we do so the students understand. And then we do drills at specific times and periods and what those drills are. And again, this is from a few years ago. We mix it up every year, what it kind of looks like. And sometimes we'll do a drill and we'll block a hallway. And so they have to think on their feet and figure out a different way to evacuate or a different way to approach a problem. And so this is, and it's been problematic the last few years with COVID. I'll admit that. I'll be the first to admit that. But we still have practiced them. And so this is what that week looks like. But again, we practice them beyond that week. We really dedicate a whole week to be pretty clear with the students and staff what the expectation is. And I'm in the building when a lot of these things are being practiced, as are a lot of our administrators across the district. You know, sometimes we'll have the primary elementary school administrators come up to the secondary levels to help out for a drill if we're short. And what I can tell you is, it's just so impressive to see our students and staff. They take it seriously. And they're very efficient at what they do. And that's a huge ask. And we're really proud of them for doing those things. I mentioned Parkland, and that was on Valentine's Day in 2018. And what a horrible thing that happened in Florida. But I wanted to emphasize this, that day that Parkland occurred, all of our academy students were in our auditorium. And Houston Kraft is a nationally renowned speaker. And he was speaking to all of our students about choose love, choose kindness. That's his message, to choose love and to choose kindness. And our students didn't know what was happening in Florida at that same time that they were having this great, impactful, coming together assembly. And in the coming days, you see some images here of our students. They just were not going to stand for violence. They coordinated some silent protests in opposition of what was happening, calling for mental health resources, calling for more measures for student safety. And I couldn't have been more proud of them. Kids, you know, they really do, they can send some strong messages, and they're just so wise and thoughtful. And so really proud of our kids in the aftermath of such a horrific, tragic event. And I just wanted to point that out. And so around the time that happened, I think it really changed kind of the Canandaigua City School District and our approach to taking safety seriously. I'm not for a second saying we're perfect, and I'm not for a second saying we're immune to these things, because nobody is, and that's the reality. But you know, we have great kids, and even our kids who struggle, they're great kids. They just have some struggles and they need help. And you know, the reality is we need to find ways to give more mental health resources, because that's the root of a lot of this in my professional opinion. But I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that. I'd also be remiss if I didn't mention our character ed initiative. These are the verb or the terms, I shouldn't say verbs. These are the traits, the terms that we teach our students explicitly, UPK 12. On the left-hand side, the respect side of the column, that's my left. I'm not sure what you're seeing it as, but I think you're left. That's what we teach to our UPK 5 students. And on the other side is what we teach to our 7, 12 students. And we teach them those terms because those are the traits we want all of our students to exhibit. We believe in our character ed initiative. We have over 50 community partners that hang these traits in their place of business throughout our community, and they help support that message. COVID, it was difficult to operate with character education, but we did operate with it. And we just had our first in-person meeting since 2019, a couple weeks ago for character education with some community partners. Awesome meeting. We have great plans coming into next school year to really hit home with a lot of these traits, because we talked about what are the main things coming out of COVID and this global pandemic that people are struggling with. And we all agreed, a sense of belonging and mental health. Those two things. And when you look at our character initiatives, all those traits really can support a sense of belonging and mental health. And so we have some really good plans we're excited to share with you, probably coming out of the summer as we work towards that. And then our DEI initiative. So the district has 4 central goals. You can see those all the way on the left-hand side, our 4 central goals. One of those is called to cultivate an equitable and inclusive school environment. And then you see our pillars. So we want to create that in every one of those pillars. And so we want to confront bias and inequities and discrimination in our community. And when I say that, sometimes people get upset about that because they immediately go to race only. And what I can tell you is that includes race, but it doesn't just include race. It includes LGBTQ. It includes our families that are coming from poverty and our students that are coming from poverty. It includes gender. It includes everything. We want every student, regardless of their individual story, to feel seen and appreciated and valued, and most of all, a sense of belonging in our school environment. That's what that is. And if people can't get behind having a school system where every single student feels like they belong, I don't understand that perspective. Because if every student feels like they belong, they're going to be happier, they're going to be successful, and they're going to be healthy and safe. And that's our ultimate goal. And I could talk about that alone for days on end. But that's the point of our cultivating an equitable and inclusive school environment, right to the base of it all. Every student should feel a sense of belonging in our school, a true, authentic sense of belonging. And so I think I've emphasized that enough. But really, that's kind of where we are with safety and kind of our things that we have in place. I went through that. It took me a little bit longer than I thought it would. But I wanted to emphasize some things. I'm going to stop sharing now because I see we have some questions in here. And so I'm going to try to answer some of those questions as I can go through this. Let's see. So do we regularly attempt the security of the systems? So the integrity of the systems. So we actually, we do our own, if you're talking about the technology aspect of it, we have our own way to test our technology integrity so people can't hack in, but we also contract with outside organizations to test the security of our technology systems. So I hope I'm answering that. But yes, we do test those regularly, in fact, yearly. Okay. Oh, thank you. This is just, I think this is a complimentary comment, just saying, that, it seems as though we have more than most. And we've been able to do that basically with the wisdom that we've seen in the rear view. Exactly right. Unfortunately, horrible things have happened around the nation, and we've been able to learn about that and how things happened there, and how can we be better prepared for the unthinkable. I also want to say, and I say this openly with every person I talk to about safety, I can't offer anybody a 100% guarantee. Can't do it. I mean, not this day and age. The only thing that might provide close to that is if we implemented airport security at every school system. And who wants to live in a world like that? I'm not looking for an answer to that question, but that's something really to think about. That's really tough to think about, truly. But, there are no guarantees, but what we need to do is be as prepared as possible, be as thoughtful as possible. And here's the closest I can give you to a guarantee. Make sure every kid feels a sense of belonging at school, and every adult. It's probably an unreachable ideal, but if we're not striving towards that, I don't know what else we should be. I'm sorry, I'm just reading. Some of these are a little bit longer, so I'm just trying to read and understand that. Yeah, I just want to make sure I reflect this a little bit, that a lot of these places where these tragic events happened, whether it was what happened in Buffalo, and I haven't really talked much about what happened in Buffalo, while I should be, because they're very much similar in so many ways, that there's warning signs, there's written word, there's posts on social media, and things like that. And so maybe within this person suggesting, I think within the curriculum, helping kids productively share if they're struggling in their thoughts, so they can maybe receive help. So I think that's what you're suggesting here. I will say we have fantastic counselors, social workers, psychologists, our mental health staff. They're really great. And our staff in general are really great at identifying students that might be in need of support and trying to connect with them. And so certainly we definitely try to do that as much as possible. We try to do that beyond as much as possible, to the point of exhaustion, to be quite frank and honest with you. But yeah, that it's an interesting question about, in the curriculum, helping kids write their opinions, feelings, wants, and needs. I think in some ways we do, but then what's your entry point with that? What age is appropriate for that? Who needs it? Does every student need it? I will say a couple things. Our district, and we didn't talk much about two things. In the primary elementary school, we do responsive classrooms. Almost all of our teachers have been trained, on responsive classrooms. And that's a focus, in part, there's a lot of pieces to it, but in part about building community in the classroom. There are specific activities they do to start the day to get and kids share how they're feeling. It's part of it. How are you feeling? What's in your mind? How's your day? How are things going? And they share their feelings, and they create community every morning in our classrooms. That's purposeful, because if kids feel community and we can spend a little bit of time on that, the rest of the day will be far more productive. So we have the responsive classroom happening at the primary elementary school, which is great. Our secondary schools, the middle school and academy and CACC, they're all being trained in restorative practices. And so, like I said, we want kids to heal and to improve and to get better. Restorative practices is just that. If a student violates a rule or has a behavior issue, what we tend to try to do as much as possible is take a restorative approach. This is what you did, and this is how it negatively impacted others, and helping them understand and own what they did and how it negatively impacted others. Yes, occasionally we have to do the punitive approach, and we do, but that's not going to change the behavior. If we can't help kids understand how to control their behavior, then their behavior is just going to continue. The punitive approach for some of the kids just won't ever change them. For some of our kids it would, but for some it won't. The ones that have the more deeply rooted repetitive behaviors, it won't change their behaviors unless we can be restorative. So we're doing that there. We're also doing mindfulness with our students UPK-12. We have some of our staff that are trained on mindfulness, meditation, mindfulness approaches to managing their unsettled behavior. And we also work with a BOCES expert on that. And she'll come here regularly and work with classrooms and students and teams. They've even worked with athletic teams. So yeah, we are taking those approaches. Can we inform parents when lockdown and other drills are being performed? So we do inform parents typically after the fact. For this one, I apologize. If that didn't happen, because, well, sometimes we drop the ball, and I apologize for that. However, we do try to inform parents after the fact, but we don't want the students knowing too far in advance, because we want people taking it seriously. So there's that balance we try to. That safety week, everyone knows far in advance, even parents. It's on the calendar, we give them reminders, but the ones we practice beyond that, we typically tell the parents after the fact, that same day. If it's a drill with police presence on campus, we usually will send out a communication or a page pop-up on our website as it's happening, so people don't get upset or worry when they see the police on our campus. Almost anytime police are on our campus, we're sending out a page pop-up or a communication. Yes, this is a question about doors being propped open to the outside. We send regular reminders to our staff to make sure doors are not propped, they're locked to the outside. And we really, try to emphasize that. We also know that, when there's recess happening or a phys ed class that goes outside, that sometimes a kid has to come in to use the restroom or something like that. And there's a convenience factor to propping the door open, but we need to keep reminding people, I understand there's a convenience factor, but the safety factor outweighs the convenience factor. We need to pull any wedges at any time we see them. And our camera systems are pointed there. And we've actually just reminded staff last week, if you see a door wedged, pull the wedge and report it to your administrator, because the administrator can go on our surveillance camera and see who wedged the door open. So that way we can talk to that person to make sure it doesn't happen again. But that is our approach. And then having an SRO at the PES for the rest of the year. Yes, we will continue to have an SRO presence at the PES throughout the year. And we do all the time anyway, but there's a little bit more presence of recent, and we'll continue to do that. So windows can be open to classrooms, that's not in violation. And so this question was that sometimes windows are open, there's no air conditioning. And so it gets really hot in there sometimes. So second floor windows is much less problematic than first floor, but we encourage teachers that if they'd like to have their windows open in the classroom, just be aware. We also gave the reminder of classroom doors. Teachers have the option. They can have their classroom door magnetic hold open. They can have it closed and unlocked or closed and locked. Remember, they have the button to lock it if they need to in a hurry. If it's magnetic hold open, it can close automatically in a hurry too. We don't want any wedges on classroom doors, because then it's harder to close in an urgent situation. So we really have asked teachers to, follow your level of comfort, but be mindful at all times and aware. So this question is about a first grade parent, and they're just mentioning that they believe that the classroom sizes are large without paraprofessional support. And is that something that the district is evaluating? We evaluate that all the time. And in fact, we're unlike a lot of the Wayne Finger Lakes regional schools. We're larger, we're more urban-like, while we're definitely rural in our setting, if we really want to be honest, but we're more urban-like in our size and our resources. So we do a lot of comparative data with school districts in Monroe County. And what I can tell you is our class sizes and our para support is much more favorable than most districts our size. Now, you can't compare us to a Naples or a Bloomfield. We're two totally different systems, but it is something we evaluate all the time. This one is just a thank you, and that they adore our staff and appreciate our staff. And I couldn't emphasize that. And we have fantastic staff. We really do. The last few years have been exponentially challenging, but they just continue to be fantastic people showing up for kids, and just doing the best they can to support and help kids. And we appreciate our staff too. Another thumbs up. Thank you for that. And here's someone agreeing with that sense of belonging. If I could say one thing, that's it. It's a sense of belonging. Every kid deserves it. Every adult deserves it. A true sense of belonging. It doesn't get much more simple than that. That was actually on opening day. I know some staff members are on here. If you remember, on opening day, COVID was here, and we had our big meeting with almost 800 staff at Braves Field at our stadium outside. We usually do it in our auditorium, but we did it outside. We'll probably continue that tradition. A lot of feedback was great. But you remember, on that day, our message was just that. a sense of belonging. I talked extensively about it, and so did our board president. That is central to what our job is. So short for this is a question about staff opening door for visitors, propping doors open, things like that. Again, I agree. It does every school is problematic to a degree. I can tell you, I think it's less problematic here than most schools, but we need to give constant reminders and using our surveillance cameras to figure out who did it so that it can be addressed. We do perimeter checks. Our custodians do that at night to make sure everything's locked down. Maybe we need to add that midday and throughout the day, having our custodians do perimeter checks, making sure things aren't wedged open, and then reporting what it is so we can go back to the video, because that's the reality. If we can have it reported when it happens and determine who did it, we can address it and making sure it's not happening again. So maybe adding more perimeter checks throughout the day would make sense. Yeah, so this is more of a, I talked about all the doors closing and locking, and this is a question: if there was a fire, can kids get out? Yes. So there are very specific fire codes that we have to follow, and there has to be egress. So kids have to be allowed multiple points of egress. So there are crash bars in certain directions to get out. If they're in the hallway and these doors close and lock, a kid could crash bar all the way out and get out of the building and get away from the building if they were in the hallway or into a bathroom or something like that. But you couldn't get into the classroom unless someone let them in. But yes, that is something that's actually checked every year. We have an independent person come in by law, and they have to make sure all the fire egress points are accessible no matter where they are. And then the bullying piece, absolutely. Rod, I love what you put here. Addressing bullying. Not every kid comes from money, or they're able to play sports. And maybe this kid was bullied, or in cases they had been bullied. That is exactly it. Every kid needs a sense of belonging and needs to be supported and cared for. And if instances of bullying are happening, it needs to be addressed. Actually, I'm so happy you brought this up. We just started this on our website, on our main page at the very bottom. You see it says bias/DASA reporting, and it's also on our DEI district page. But right on our main website, to the bottom, there's a button. You push it, and it's a form that will come up. And I hope you share this with everybody, and I hope everyone talks about this. A parent could fill it out, a student could fill it out, a staff member could fill it out. If there's an instance of bullying or any incidents of bias, all you do is fill that out, and it will automatically go to the building DASA coordinator and our district DASA coordinator for a full investigation. That's brand new. It went live about 2 weeks ago. And so we're trying to make these things accessible for anybody to fill out so it can be addressed. And so please know that's there. And as an aside, Rod, I'll also say, I'm in the middle, I'm close to finishing my doctoral program. My study is on truly a sense of belonging and making sure all kids have equal access to co-curricular and extracurricular activities. Because this is what I can tell you. If you look at some of our teams or our groups like orchestra or downhill skiing, or I'm just going to say lacrosse because it's true. Look at, and there's so many more. I'm just using those examples. There's others. I promise you, you won't find any, maybe one, but probably not any kids that come from poverty on those teams. They can't afford it. And that's a problem that we need to fix. We need to make these things accessible for all kids, regardless of their circumstances. And so we've been doing a lot of talking, and I've been doing a lot of research on ways we can change our practices as a district so that all kids have equal access to all those things and they'll be supported. So we're really hopeful for some things being implemented next year that will start to shift so that all kids, regardless of their background, have access to all those things. Because I think part of belonging is being involved in a club or activity or sport or a team. It could be the performing arts, the visual arts, It could anything, just be involved. And that becomes kind of your social group and something you feel good about. We would see big improvement. Is the SRO part of our budget? In fact, we pay for all of the part-time 6-hour SRO, and we pay half of the full-time SRO. That was an agreement between us and the city. It was their idea to have this youth officer as a full-time SRO, and we would split the cost evenly. And so they came to us with that idea, and we agreed to it because it's more access to us to an SRO. So that one person is split costs, the other person we pay for entirely. Issues on bus, we have cameras on the bus, videos on the bus. So sometimes issues on a bus is reported by a student. They're sometimes reported by a driver, sometimes reported by a parent. We always go back to the video to try to hear and confirm what was reported, and we involve families and address it that way. We can answer that. I think I answered the referral one with the online reporting. Yeah, so this is someone just saying set a time each day for kids to work on anger management and mindfulness techniques and things like that. And we are doing more and more of that. And I talked about the UPK 5 approach to the responsive classroom. And really that is a lot of community building and those types of skills. In fact, our teachers, especially at those levels, they are so fantastic at working with kids on those techniques. But yeah, a lot of great ideas there. Time for staff also, because let's face it, this isn't a kid-only issue. This is also an adult issue. People are struggling, and our staff and our administration, it's stressful, and we need to learn how to manage our own feelings and emotions and anger. I mean, because we're all susceptible to it. Just another proud to belong to the Braves family. Kudos to all of our staff. So thank you for that kind comment. Thank you for a great presentation. Can we please forward this to the politicians? You're all hitting on such great things. We had an Ontario County Superintendent meeting today. We talked a lot about Senator Helming. We talked a lot about we're going to go to the county with this whole notion of shared services. And here's another thing I haven't talked about, and I see a few people have left us, but we still have most of you hanging on. We're the first district in Ontario County to have 2 things. One are case managers. They're Ontario County employees that are housed in our district. And they're case managers. They work to support families in need and connecting them with resources. And the other thing that we're the first one we're piloting it right now is co-located counseling services. And this is what I emphasized today in our meeting. And I said, this is the answer right here. Any family, I don't care if you have resources, if your child needs mental health support, for you as an adult to take a half a day out of work, to come to the school, to get your child, to take them to counseling, they miss a half a day of school. That takes a lot. That's a lot of strain on your family, on your work, on your professional life, on the student and their school life. We have an independent counselor that actually has an office in our middle school 1 day a week. And that counselor had space to see 14 students. That counselor is full and seeing 14 students on that 1 day every week. And they have a waiting list of 19 more students. Look at the convenience factor of that. The student just walks out of class, goes down to the office, has their half-hour, 45-minute counseling session, and goes back to class. Parents didn't have to miss any work. Student didn't miss very little school, and it's done in a kind of we're sensitive to it, so it's not a big ordeal when a student goes there. We want it to be confidential. And what a great thing. Every school building should have that. Every school 5 days a week should have a community counselor that's located on school campuses so kids can get the mental health services they need without creating any more burden on families. And that's something we need to have more of. So Canandaigua was the first to have that in the county, and the case manager. We also have free family counseling. I think we're up to 3 nights a week for families on our campus, and that's full, and a lot of families are seeing that. Okay, I think I got through. Oh, And yep, and one of the people commented, they know exactly who those people are that are the case managers, and they are amazing. You're absolutely right. And then, yeah, so the windows, open windows seem to undermine the security measures. They do, you know, you have to have risk, you have to weigh the risks to everything. And you have to really look at that. And so, yes, I would agree. Windows wide open, probably not necessary, but to have them opened a little bit, you know, I could see, and maybe just one or two opened a little bit where they can easily be closed if needed, something to weigh. But I understand the concern. I'm not arguing with it at all. It's just it's a tough situation. It's you know, it gets really warm in there. And we also have the whole, while COVID seems to be getting better, we have a lot of stomach bug and flu and things like that going around, and fresh air helps to mitigate those things. So these are all things we're trying to weigh out. All right, so I've gotten through all the questions, I believe. If I missed somebody's, by all means, please email me, give me a call. Happy to talk to you more about it. You know, we had a community member reach out today with expertise in this area and thought they had some things they could offer us. I believe you're on this forum right now listening. And we said, yeah, great. And we had our administrator in charge of security and safety call this person immediately. What can we learn? We're always looking to improve. We don't have all the answers, but certainly, you know, we're trying our best and we're doing everything we can. I will pose this question. You know, what are others doing to help support the efforts that school is doing? And so can we partner with the community, the Ontario County Department of Mental Health, to bring outside counselors onto all of our school buildings 5 days a week to service kids? It's not a cost burden to the Ontario County Mental Health because it's not free. There are either, families are either paying for the service like they would if it was an outside counselor, or it's getting subsidized by social services if the family can't pay for it. So it's still the same revenue stream for the county, but why can't we have it here and make it more convenient so everybody can get it? Why can't we expand it? Those are the questions that I will continue to ask. But anyway, one more question popped in about after school events. Exactly, I mentioned it briefly. Those are really difficult situations. We are trying to have SROs at after school events way more frequently than ever before, and we'll continue to do that. And then I think here's one about the CACC, our alternative school. Well, we've gone back and forth about that alternative school and how to manage it. Yes, you did see somebody walking around there taking pictures today, but remember, I know this is coming from an employee there. Brian Nolan sent out a message to all staff last week saying there will be people walking around taking pictures of the outside and inside facility, and they all should be badged. It's part of our required, every 5 years, we have to do a facilities evaluation by an outside source. So they have to come in, look at all of our facilities and tell us what we need to have worked on for our next capital project. So that's who those people are. If they're there without their badge on because they're supposed to report to the operations center before going onto campus to get their badge, let us know immediately and we'll be over there to find out who they are and why they don't have their badge on. But I'm positive that's who that was. Okay, I have to get to an event that's happening on campus. I've already gone about 12 minutes longer than I had planned to, but thank you all so much and thank you for hanging in there. This was recorded. We'll make it available for everybody to see. Thank you, Heather, and all of our PTSA members. You are such great folks to work with. We really appreciate it. So take care, everybody. Have a great night. Pleasure being with you.